Welcome back to Imperfect Politics, everybody. Hopefully you're having a wonderful Monday so far. I got a good one for you today. A good one and an old one. Jagmeet Singh's interview when he left his supply and confidence agreement. Before we get to it, if I could ask you to like and subscribe to the channel, that would be awesome. Other than that, let's get to it.
Brian Lilly with the Toronto Sun. You've made it very clear that you don't have faith in the Liberal government to deliver for Canadians. So a simple question, hopefully a simple answer. Do you have confidence in the Trudeau government?
Well, we've ripped up the agreement with Justin Trudeau. That speaks for itself. I've ripped up the agreement, and I know that that means an election is now more likely. We will look at every vote as it comes and make a decision as it comes. I'm not going to presuppose the outcome of a vote before it happens. We will look at each vote and make our decision as it comes. But let us be very clear. I am absolutely aware that ripping up the agreement with Justin Trudeau means an election is more likely, and that sets up the question for what is this election going to be about. I am very strongly in belief that this election is about two competing visions for our country. The vision of Pierre Poilievre and the Conservatives is a vision to cut the things that you want. They're bragging about wanting to cut healthcare and destroy universal public healthcare as we know it. So the choice is, do you want Pierre Poilievre and the Conservatives to make our healthcare system one where you've got to pay out of pocket to see a doctor and only those who've got money can get healthcare that they need? Or you
They've never once said that. Not once has the Conservatives come out and said that they were going to destroy the healthcare plan. Not once. And not once did they say that they were going to bring in a pay-for-play plan either. That's a complete and utter lie.
Democrats who believe very fundamentally that it should not matter how much you have in your wallet to determine the quality of care and how fast you get it. That is a choice in this upcoming election. What vision of Canada Canadians want?
You've said about a dozen times at least that you've ripped up the agreement and that makes an election more likely. But you've been asked several times and you won't answer. Do you have confidence in the Trudeau government as they stand now?
And that's an interesting... It's sort of a gotcha question, too, because if he says no, that he doesn't have confidence, then if he doesn't... Then at the next budget, or a non-confidence vote, if he doesn't vote non-confidence, that proves that he's a liar. And that proves that he does have confidence in this government. But if he says that he does still have confidence in the Trudeau government, then everybody will be asking him, then why are you backing out of the supply and confidence agreement? Because now you have no leverage over the Trudeau government to get anything in. So it's a really, really good question.
I will be clear again. We have absolutely ripped up the agreement with Justin Trudeau, and that means an election is more likely.
Clear. That's not clear. You're
and an election, whenever that election comes, we'll be ready to fight it. And the vision around that election is going to be an important one. Canadians will have to make a choice.
But can we get an answer?
Corporate-controlled Conservatives, they're going to let their corporate buddies rip you off even more, or New Democrats are going to save you money.
Keep fighting for that answer. Keep fighting. Hopefully you get it, Brian Lilly. Good job.
Money on your rent and your groceries. That's a choice that Canadians will have to make.
Can we get an answer?
I will look at any vote that comes before us, and we will make a decision in the best interest of Canadians, as any minority government normally operates.
Hi, Mr. Singh. Laura Stone, Globe and Mail. I think a lot of Canadians watching this right now might be a bit baffled by the political posturing that's going on. You've propped up the government for 2 years. Now all of a sudden they're terrible because of some vague notion of corporate greed, and you're refusing to say whether you'll bring down the government at the first opportunity. What is the point of all this, sir?
And I think that wonderful, just spread the salt question is what every Canadian is wondering at this moment.
We have been very clear. We accomplished some significant things for Canadians. We got dental care for millions of Canadians. We're able to get the first steps on pharmacare. We've been able to get things done that are going to make people's lives better. But it became very clear to me, after having got these important things done, that people need more. And Justin Trudeau is unwilling, does not have the courage, doesn't have the strength, and is too beholden to corporations to stop big corporations from ripping off Canadians, which is driving up the cost of groceries and driving up the cost of rent. So we've ripped up the agreement, and we're going to move into a vote-by-vote basis. So any decision that comes before us, we'll make based on what's in the best interest of Canadians. But let us be clear, this absolutely means an election is more likely. And that election is going to be about an important choice between the cuts of Pierre Poilievre or New Democrats who want to build a better future for you.
You announced that you've ripped up this agreement or canceled it about 5 days after Mr. Poilievre challenged you to do so. Why did you only come out after the Conservatives put pressure on you, and was it a mistake for you to not do this earlier?
I will never, ever take advice from Pierre Poilievre, who wants to destroy our healthcare system.
Actually, maybe you should, because well, actually, let's look at the polls right now. Here's a quick projection of the federal polling right now, and as you can see, it's projected that the Conservatives are going to win 212 seats, Liberals are going to win 77 seats, and NDP are going to win 16 seats in the next federal election if it was held today. So we would have a majority CPC conservative government. So maybe, Jagmeet, maybe you should take a couple of notes from the Conservatives who are wiping the floor with you. Just, you're not even a speck on that sheet. 16 seats. And that's all under Jagmeet Singh. So, take a note, Jagmeet. Take a note.
Pensions for seniors, who wants to let his corporate buddies rip off Canadians even more. I will never, ever take advice from Pierre Poilievre. Clearly, and my team can give you some more details on this, we filmed this video way before that came out. And to be honest with you, to be frank with you, Pierre Poilievre has been saying to tear up the agreement since 2 years ago. So no, it has nothing to do with Pierre Poilievre at all. It's a silly claim of Pierre Poilievre, which he often makes and something that he likes to make up. But it is an important choice that's in front of Canadians. We have ripped up this agreement. We've made this decision. We've gotten things done for Canadians. And now there will be a choice for Canadians to make. What type of country do we want to build? Do you want to build a country where Pierre Poilievre throws fuel on the fire of corporate greed, lets his corporate buddies have free reign to rip you off, to rent evict you, to jack up your rents, to jack up the price of your groceries? Or a vision where New Democrats give people hope, where we lower the price of your groceries, where we lower the cost of your rent, where we say no to corporate greed that is hurting Canadians, and we say yes to people. That's a choice in front of Canadians, and that's a choice I'm presenting today.
Well, nobody actually asked him, how are you going to achieve all of those things? Because right now it looks like you don't have a plan. You're just spewing niceties at people and hoping people listen to you. That's the problem with you, Jagmeet. And the NDP.
Hi, Joe Breen with the National Post. You've made it clear that the railway stoppage and lockout was a major factor in your decision to end this agreement. My question is, would you have allowed that stoppage to go on indefinitely? And if not, what would you have done differently?
Well, on the railway stoppage, it's a very important question. And it's important to look at what actually went on. You have two large, highly profitable corporations, CN and CPKC, that both, in effect, if you look at the timing, it's pretty suspect, colluded to set up a scenario where both of those companies were in a labor dispute at the same time. If you look at the way that panned out, it's not coincidence that it seems every time they both time it to do it together. Then you look at their behavior. The workers did not even go on strike. The workers were locked out by the corporation. And instead of putting the blame on the corporation, CPKC and CN Rail, people often say, well, the workers are on strike because they want to keep Canadians safe. They were going to go on strike and they wanted to raise concerns about safety. And instead of letting this be negotiated at the negotiating table, Justin Trudeau decided to reward basically bad faith, reward these corporations that are already taking advantage of these workers, and negotiating in bad faith, he rewarded that bad faith. That absolutely added to the evidence that we had that Justin Trudeau and the Liberals are too beholden to corporate interests to actually stand up to them, to stand up for Canadians. So that is an important example. And I want to make it clear, if there was any disruption in goods, the fault would go squarely at the feet of CP and CPKC and CN Rail. They're the ones, in one case, that locked out the workers. The workers didn't even go on strike yet. So it would be their fault that consumers and people weren't able to get the goods that they needed. All they needed to do is negotiate fairly and ensure that the safety concerns of the workers were met and negotiate a fair deal. That's what would have avoided any of the problems. But Justin Trudeau and the Liberals sided with big corporations again, and we're now seeing the forced binding arbitration, which is a horrible decision, hurts working people, and sets a bad precedent.
They're all clapping, but he doesn't actually answer the question. Like, he doesn't actually say what he would have done. It sounds like he would have just let it go indefinitely. And he doesn't actually, I don't know if he either doesn't know this, or he's just ignorant, or he just doesn't want other people to know that he knows that talks were going on before the lockout ever happened. But, I mean, that would kind of hurt his whole premise here. And I'm not saying that that they shouldn't have gone on to strike and stuff like that, right? I'm not saying what the government did was good. I'm saying it's harvest time here in Canada. If the railways weren't running, that means food shortage. So the government had to deal with food shortages, poor economy, and everything else that comes with railway line stop, or putting this this bill through, or this law through. And you forget, Jagmeet, you're the one who stood up for this government. So this is on you.
Mr. Singh, Jordan Olmsted with the Canadian Press. Aren't you worried that this move could jeopardize the programs that your party has been fighting for, such as pharmacare?
I appreciate the question. I want to be very clear on this point. If any of the programs do not move forward, it is the fault of Justin Trudeau. He has all the tools necessary to move forward. And if he does not move forward on pharmacare, even though it's been passed in Parliament, if he doesn't move to the next phase on dental care, even though all the legislation necessary has been passed, then it is his fault. It will be the Liberals' fault. And if they fail to deliver, I will finish the job when I'm Prime Minister.
I didn't know that Jagmeet Singh was a comedian. Oh, that's pretty funny. I had a good laugh when he said he'd be Prime Minister. We all saw the chart where he said it's projected he'd get 16 seats. So... delusion is fun to see.
Not prendre des questions sur Zoom. We will now take questions on Zoom. Given that we have very limited.
Hi there. Good morning. Barbara with Politics. What specifically led to the decision to cancel the agreement with the Liberals? Were there any recent developments or turning points that triggered this decision?
Thank you for the question. We've got a lot done. We've got some important things that we completed. But it became very clear to me that Justin Trudeau is too beholden to corporate interests to go further, unwilling to stop big corporations that are ripping off Canadians. And so I've ripped up the supply and confidence agreement with Justin Trudeau.
He's ripped it up, everybody. He just wants us to let you know that he's ripped it up. If you haven't seen the video before, or he's same talking points. Like, I've ripped up, liberal corruption, liberal this, that. Ay.
And we know that that makes the election timing more uncertain and frankly more likely. And we know that the next election is going to be about a choice, a very important choice for Canadians, between Pierre Poilievre, who wants to destroy our healthcare system, tear it down, or New Democrats who want to fix our healthcare system, build it up for people. That's an important choice, and that's the choice we're bringing to Canadians.
Catherine Brulotte, Radio-Canada.
Radio-Canada. First of all, do you have confidence in the Trudeau government currently? Well, we've ripped up the agreement with Justin Trudeau. We know that this means that it's more likely that we be in an election than we were in the past. We did this because it was clear for us that Justin Trudeau and the Liberals haven't been bold enough. They were too weak to stand up to big business gouging ordinary people in this country. We know in the next election people will have a real choice, a choice between Pierre Poilievre, who intends to allow this big business to gouge you more, and that would mean further price increases for groceries and rent, or you can vote for the NDP, who want to reduce your grocery bill and your rent and to help people save money.
We tore up the agreement with Justin Trudeau, and we know that that means that an election.
He tore it up again. Just in case you didn't hear.
Now is more likely than before. And we've accomplished a lot together. It was important work, but it became very clear to me that Justin Trudeau and the Liberals were far too weak to stop big corporations from ripping off people. And people deserve more. And we know now that that sets up a question for the election. A choice between Pierre Poilievre, who has made it clear that he will allow his corporate buddies to rip off Canadians even more. That means higher prices at the grocery till, and it means higher rents for corporate landlords. Or us, New Democrats, who want to stop these corporations from ripping you off and save you money when you buy your groceries or pay your rent. That's a choice in the next election.
You're going to have to tell us how you're going to do that, Jagmeet, how you're going to save us money. Because taxing corporations, you think it's all corporate greed, they're just going to pass that on to the taxpayer, so you got no answers. And you're calling the Liberal government a weak government, which you're not wrong. So you're admitting you've been propping up a weak government for 3 years, and just now it's suddenly coming to you that that's not a good idea? I don't think so, Jagmeet. I think where this is coming from is apparently Pierre Poilievre sent a letter to Jagmeet Singh saying, like, if you don't pull out of this confidence agreement right now, you're going to always be known as Sellout Singh. And then this sort of came around. So I think he's bending from the pressure of the Conservatives. Because I don't understand why he'd pull out now.
Comment allez-vous voter si un parti présente une
How will
motion
you vote if an opposition party votes non-confidence in the government? Well, because we have ripped up the agreement with Justin Trudeau, that creates a situation where
he's ripped it up, folks.
An election is now more likely than it was in the past, of course. We'll have to look at each vote on its merits, and we'll decide what's in the interests of Canadians and Quebecers. We'll have to.
It's so weird how he says that. He says we're gonna have to look at the interests of Canadians and Quebecers. It's like he thinks that Quebecers are not Canadians. Just say Canadians. And I know some people might say, it's not that significant. No, it's significant. Once you start talking like this, you make people feel like they're not part of the country, or they're different. It kind of shows who this guy actually is.
To assess each vote on a case-by-case basis to see what's in the best interest of Canadians. What was clear for the next election is that Justin Trudeau and the Liberals are far too weak to face down the Conservatives and Pierre Poilievre's cut agenda. We in the NDP are ready for this fight, this battle. We're ready for it. We are putting forward an option of hope. We want to bring back hope. We want to strengthen our healthcare system. We can put an end to price gouging once and for all.
Victoria Stunt with CBC National News. What is your assessment of how the supply and confidence agreement worked for the NDP, and do you think you'll actually be able to leverage more from the Liberals without this deal? If you could answer in English and French.
Sure. When I think about the supply and confidence agreement, I think about two people and what it means to those two folks. And that to me is something I keep in my heart. I think about Brianna, a mom of 5 kids, who was able to get each of her kids a visit to the dentist for the first time in their life. And I met her kids at a park in Edmonton, and I can tell you her kids were happier and healthier because of that visit. And I think about Susan, who insists I call her Sue, and I remember meeting her.
Oh, here's Susan again. If you haven't seen pretty much every single interview that and press conference that Jagmeet has done, there's always this Sue. The Sue this, Sue. At least he has a better, or another person, but pick other people. If you've only found 2 people with a story after a year or 2, something's wrong.
In Ottawa, and she was sitting in the dentist chair when she told the dentist and the denturist that she is a cancer survivor. She beat cancer, but in the aftermath of that, lost her teeth, and that she wanted her smile back. And I remember her tears of joy when the dentist and the denturist said, "We're going to get you your smile back." That's who I think about. I think about Sue and I think about Brianna and millions of people like them that have gotten support because we fought for them. But I also know that Sue and Brianna need a lot more, and that this Liberal government is not willing to do that Justin Trudeau is simply not willing to stop big corporations from ripping them off. And that's why we made this decision. It is clear that the Liberals and Justin Trudeau do not have the courage, they're too beholden to corporate interests, to stop them from being ripped off, to stop people from being ripped off. And we know that this sets up potential for a more likelihood of an election, and that election is going to come down to a choice. Pierre Poilievre, who's going to let his buddies.
Okay, I'm going to skip this real quick because he's just saying the exact same thing.
Which is represented by the NDP, and businesses and people say they're afraid to go outside because of the crime, because of the shootings that's going on. What is the NDP doing right now to address this problem?
Thank you for the question. First, I want to say that this is a serious problem across the country. There are many communities where people are feeling really afraid. And you mentioned Hamilton Centre. I can think of lots of communities across the country where people feel like they're not safe. And this is a serious concern because people have the right to be safe in their communities, should be able to take public transit, should be able to operate a business in their communities and feel safe. We know that fixing this problem to create safer communities is a complex one, but it's one that we can absolutely tackle. There's a number of areas where we've got to get serious about solutions. One we know is that when it comes to gun violence, there's a serious concern about guns getting across the border. When Pierre Poilievre and the Conservatives had the ability to make decisions, they cut investments in border security, made it harder for our men and women that serve on the borders to protect our borders. They made it...
Huh? Can I just say, huh? Crime was down when Stephen Harper was in. Pierre Poilievre was not in power back then. It was Stephen Harper, and that was, 9 years ago? And 9 years ago, crime was down. What is this guy talking about? And he's not saying what the NDP will do about it, and the NDP are in. Because he's got no plan.
It harder by reducing funding, by reducing staffing levels. We need to make sure that we are stopping guns from getting into our communities. That's one absolute step we need to take. We need to make sure that we're doing everything possible to keep communities safe. We also need to look at some of the roots of violence and address those with whatever the best evidence is to keep communities safe. We need to use experts' advice to ensure that communities and people are able to move freely, operate their businesses safely in wherever they live.
So could I ask you to answer in English, please, the question that you answered in French? Basically, if Pierre Poilievre moves a non-confidence motion, will you support it?
In terms of...
Let me just guess. Let me guess. I ripped up the agreement, and because I have ripped up the agreement, I am going to do this by a vote-by-vote basis. And depending on how this affects Canadians, this might make it more likely that it goes to an election. Let's see if I'm pretty close to what Jagmeet's actually going to say.
Any motion moving forward, we're going to look at that motion before we decide. We're not going to presuppose an outcome of that. But I have ripped up the agreement with Justin Trudeau. And I know that means that an election has now become more likely. We are ready to fight an election whenever that happens. And when that election comes, the choice is going to be between Pierre Poilievre and conservative cuts who want to literally destroy our healthcare system. Want to make it so that the only way you can get care is if you can afford to pay for it out of pocket. Or New Democrats who want to fix our healthcare system, build it up so it is there for you and your loved ones when you need it. That is a choice in the next election.
I forgot to spout the lies of about the Conservatives that Jagmeet always says. Dang it. I guess I'm a little bit scared of lawsuits a little bit more than Jagmeet Singh and the NDP are for lying.
Stephanie Hughes, Bloomberg. What do you need to see from the fall economic statement or spring budget in order to support the Liberals on votes?
For any question around votes, we're going to make that determination on a vote-by-vote basis. So we're going to see what the government presents, and as an opposition party, we'll look at it, and then we'll make our decision. But because I ripped up the agreement with Justin Trudeau, I know this now means that an election time...
Oh, he ripped it up again.
...more likely. And we know that that means people will have a choice to make. And I'm looking forward to bringing that choice to Canadians. A choice between Pierre Poilievre...
in the next election.
That's going to be the choice in the next election. And I'm ready to bring that choice to Canadians.
And how worried are you about losing rural and blue-collar votes or ridings to Pierre Poilievre's Conservatives in the next election?
I'm confident that we can remind Canadians what they already know about Conservatives. If you ask people in provinces across this country where they've seen just recently Conservatives, like in Manitoba, they saw what Conservatives do. They cut and gut the things that people care about. People remember in Manitoba, Premier Stephenson and Pallister, who destroyed the healthcare system. They see right here in Ontario, Doug Ford, cutting and gutting our healthcare, education, giving to his buddies, making them richer and hurting people in the process. They see that happening. And so I'll remind people what they already know. Pierre Poilievre will do exactly the same. He will allow his corporate buddies to rip you off at the grocery stores, rip you off when it comes to your rent, or the choice between New Democrats. They're going to say, we're going to fight back against that corporate greed and make sure we lower the price of your groceries and lower the price of your rent. That's the choice in the next election.
So that's mostly, I'll remind Jagmeet again, if he ever sees this, the federal government, the federal Conservatives, are totally different than the provincial Conservatives, and they have different jobs. And by the way, Alberta actually had an NDP government before the UCP, and I can tell you that the Conservatives are way better than Rachel Notley and the NDP ever were. Like, Rachel Notley wanted to just destroy our oil and gas sector. I couldn't get a job once I left school for the longest time. I had to work as a yardsman at Home Depot because of pretty much the NDP mismanaging our financial sector for the longest time. And that's how the NDP usually does stuff, is they spend, not knowing that, we just can't go into debt to pay for all of this stuff because they know they could just take it from the taxpayers and then blame it on the rich. It's how these people work.
I'm Mr. Singh, Adrian Gobriel, CTV National News. A couple questions for my colleagues in Ottawa. If the NDP do not do well in the by-elections, especially in Elmwood, Trascona, a riding New Democrats have held for the better part of 4 decades, should it prompt a review of your leadership? Your party in 3 years has made little to no gains as the Liberals' fortunes have plummeted. How much of that is on you?
I will.
Oh, snap. Nice question. Wow. End of the interview. We're getting to the harsh questions here.
Be leading the party into the next election. And in that by-election, people will have a choice. In Elmwood, Transcona, people will have a very important choice. And in Manitoba, Manitobans have made that choice very recently. They rejected conservatives. They rejected the mean politics of conservatives and, frankly, the cuts of conservatives in that province. And now that's a choice they have again, to reject the conservatives' approach of cutting and gutting the programs that people hold dear, like their health care and their pensions, and a choice between Pierre Poilievre and the conservative cuts or New Democrats who want to give people back hope, who want to strengthen pensions and fix our health care. That's the choice that people will have to make in this upcoming by-election. And we're going to take that choice to Canadians when the next general election happens as well.
Your dislike for the Tories is clear. You made it clear in your video that you released yesterday. Why do you believe that so many Canadians support them over your party?
I think Canadians right now are incredibly frustrated and let down by Justin Trudeau. And so naturally in Canada's history, when folks are upset with the red team, they then start looking at the blue team. But it's easy to remind folks what conservatives do. It's easy to remind folks what conservatives prioritize. What they do is they cut, for sure. They cut health care, they cut pensions, and they give to their corporate buddies. They give them tax giveaways. They make their buddies even richer. And that hurts people. They have a choice in this next election. The cuts of conservatives under Pierre Poilievre or New Democrats who want to restore hope, who want to strengthen your pension, who want to make sure big corporations aren't ripping you off and we can lower the price of your groceries and your rent. That's a choice that people are going to make in the next election.
And I just want to also apologize to all of my viewers for putting you through Jagmeet Singh saying the same thing over and over and over again. I promise this isn't a recording. And he's most likely not a robot. But it seems like he's incredibly ill-prepared for an interview that he set up. Because with every single question, he's just answering the exact same way. We just saw I could pretty much anticipate what he's going to say. And this guy wants to be leader. Like, we joke about Justin Trudeau not answering questions. This guy is like 10 times worse. And why people want to vote conservative is because A, conservatives have the best chance of winning, and B, because people remember how good we had it in the Stephen Harper days. Pensions were way better when Stephen Harper was around. Now pensions are being inflated away. People who are living off their CPP in Mexico have to come back to Canada because they can't afford to live in Mexico anymore because the Mexican peso is way stronger than the Canadian dollar, or is getting closer to the Canadian dollar. Sorry, it's not way stronger. It's getting closer to it, so they can't afford to live there, like they did back in Stephen Harper's days. So this thing about cutting, I know I'm harping on it a lot, but it really irritates me. And sometimes, just like your household budget, sure, it would be nice to eat steak all day. It would be nice, but sometimes when things are bad, or when you've been spending too much money on steak, you have to cut the budget and eat hamburger. The NDP don't get that. They just want steak, and they'll steal from other people to have enough money to keep eating steak. And that's who the NDP are. They'll take from everybody to keep these and disperse all this money out between people, just like they do in communism. And they'll put it under the guise of, oh, we're supporting our public works, we're supporting more dental care, yada yada, and more pharmacare, and most of the money actually goes to bureaucrats. I would like to know how much money in all these programs actually goes to bureaucrats, and how much actually goes to what the public gets out of it.
Kyle Benning, Global News. Mr. Singh, how big of a factor was the way the Trudeau government handled the recent labor dispute with rail workers a factor in ripping up this agreement?
It was another concrete example of Justin Trudeau and the Liberals caving to corporate greed. In that case, the workers weren't even able to go on strike. They were locked out in an example of bad faith. And what Justin Trudeau did was reward the bad faith of greedy corporations instead of standing up for working people. So it added to the overall examples that we had seen of Justin Trudeau and the Liberals simply being too weak, too selfish, and frankly, too beholden to corporate interests to stop big corporations from ripping off everyday Canadians. And so it added to that, the already mounting evidence. And it also added to the mounting case that Justin Trudeau and the Liberals are too weak to stop the serious threat of conservative cuts under Pierre Poilievre. And that's why we're saying this choice that people have in the next election is a very important one. It's really about the future of our country. What type of country do we want to build? One where conservatives under Poilievre cut the things that you need and let their corporate buddies rip you off? Or where New Democrats give people hope that we can fix our health care, we can strengthen your pensions, and we can stop big corporations ripping you off to lower your rent and lower your groceries.
You spoke there about the Liberals being weak. Also, you spoke earlier about
So that's actually, about the workers' union, that's actually a lie about the, well, not quite. A mistruth. They were locked out, but their talks were going on between the unions and the owners way before the lockout actually happened. It's just both sides were so unreasonable, the lockout happened. And he doesn't actually acknowledge that the railway in Canada is super, super important, and if that goes down, if that strike happened, then Canada would have been screwed. And I talked to a lot of people, and they're like, oh, we could just use planes, oh, we could just use cars and trucks. The government admitted they didn't have a plan if this was going to go on to do stuff like that. So, Jagmeet, what should have the government done? And I'm asking this truly, not as a gotcha. What should have the Liberals done instead? Should have they just done nothing? Or what? Because CN and the other rail line is a private business, not a public business anymore.
holding grocery execs to account. You also said that you're not sure when you would trigger election if that would happen. So how can you get Canadians to vote for you if you're seeing leniencies when it comes to not triggering the election, keeping a weak government in power, and also giving the Liberals a little bit of leniency when it came to implementing pharmacare?
We have ripped up the agreement with Justin Trudeau. The agreement is done. We've ripped it up. And we know that makes an election more likely. We're going to make...
Man, when will he stop saying this? It's starting to get on my nerves. These interviewers know that you've ripped it up by now. For the past 40 minutes, you've said the exact same thing. I've ripped it up. Okay. Move along and answer my question. But he doesn't.
Make a decision based on whatever votes come in front of us about how we vote on those votes. But let us be very clear. The next election is about a choice, and we are ready to take that choice to Canadians. The choice is between Pierre Poilievre and the Conservatives. We've seen what they're all about. They want to let their corporate buddies rip you off even more, give them free season to rip you off at the grocery stores, to jack up your rent if you've got a corporate landlord, to rent evict you. Or New Democrats who want to lower your rents, who want to protect you, who want to stop big corporations from ripping you off. That is a choice in the next election. And we are very clear. Justin Trudeau is too weak to stop Pierre Poilievre and the Conservative cuts. The New Democrats are ready to take this fight on.
And I think I'm going to end her there. This video is getting a little bit long. We're almost at an hour just at this. So, anyways, let me know what you guys think. What do you think about the NDP pulling out of this supply and confidence agreement? Also, if you like the video, give me a like. That would be awesome. And subscribe to the channel. I'm trying to reach 300 subscribers by the end of the month. And for everybody who already has, thank you for that. Other than that, that's all I got for you. And have a good day.